started. Welcome, everybody. Let me share my screen. Okay. Let's see. Do you guys see? Did I remember to hit record? All right, good. Just making sure I'm sharing the right screen. So welcome to our TechSoup Connect event today. I am Sandra Amer, and I'm your local your Ontario TechSoup Connect host. And as you may know, we're a program of TechSoup, and it's a global network of Tech for Good meetups. So TechSoup is also a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits implement, and use technology effectively. And if you haven't attended one of our events before, these are our community values. Here at TechSoup, we welcome everybody. We put our community first, and we're all here to support each other and make sure we can all succeed in what we're working on so that we can help build stronger nonprofits. And of course, it's kind of in the name, but we use technology as our tool to help build stronger nonprofits. We obviously invite participation, and I know things have been a little bit difficult with the pandemic over the past couple years going on. Anyways, so it's been difficult to do things in person, obviously, but hopefully we can keep this going and get back to in person at some point. And obviously, we love to treat each other with kindness and respect because that's a good way to treat everybody. If you're interested in presenting, in recommending any presenters, or have any ideas for events that we can hold, please send them my way. I know I've gotten some great ideas in the past, and I try to keep up with finding new people to present and different topics based on your suggestions. Sometimes it's a little difficult to find people, but if you know anybody who could maybe share some knowledge or participate a bit more, please send them my way. You'll have my email at the end of the presentation, or if you go to our TechSoup event page for the Ontario chapter, you can find me there as well. So a little bit more about TechSoup. If you aren't aware yet, it can help your nonprofit connect with donated and discounted products from software, hardware, to all sorts of things. So be sure to check out their website. This is just a small subset of what you can get through TechSoup. And I also like to mention that you can get Google for Nonprofits through TechSoup. It's actually free to get Google for Nonprofits. You do need to validate your nonprofit status through TechSoup to get it. So it's a great resource, especially for smaller nonprofits. So this is just an idea of what you can actually save by going through TechSoup to get your discounted software and products, which is a great savings. And there's also a forum available at TechSoup so that you can collaborate with other nonprofits and technical leaders to answer any questions you have about anything tech related and a whole bunch of other stuff. So be sure to check it out. Our events are also on TechSoup, and that's probably how you ended up here. So you probably already know that page already. And I am actually going to skip these slides because I didn't have time to update them. I apologize, but we'll get right into my presentation. And it is, hold on a second, let me just pause my share for a second. And if you guys have questions at any time, feel free to pop something into the chat or just come off mute and interrupt me. I tend to speak quite quickly, but hopefully not too quickly. I have a lot of content I do want to get through for you guys. So bear with me. If you need me to slow down, let me know. But this is also being recorded, and it's on Facebook, our Facebook Live page as well. So let me just share this. second here. My system seems to be a bit slow. Okay. Audience window. All right, I think we're just about there. You guys should see not my first slide because I messed that up. There we go. Now you should see my first slide. We're all good? Excellent. Okay, let me move this out of the way. All right, here we go. All right, so today we're here to talk about creating a virtual onboarding program using free tools. And this is something I'm really excited about, and I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So in addition to being your Ontario TechSoup host, I am also doing a whole bunch of other things. So I'm a digital workplace expert with All About Systems, which is a company I own. I've been working in IT and project management for over 20 years, and I actually started my career in human resources. So I have a major in IT management and a minor in human resources. And the first good, at least 10 to 15 years, maybe a bit more than that, because I'm still technically in it. I've been working with HR systems. So the whole idea of onboarding and bringing employees into the workplace and having a good experience is something I'm very familiar with. And as I kind of started getting more involved with nonprofits as the national president for the One Parent Families Association. And with my work here with TechSoup, I had the idea of putting together this presentation to kind of help people figure out how they can use free tools to create a good onboarding program for not just employees, but also for your board of directors, your volunteers. Maybe you have an onboarding program for your donors. It can be used for anything really. There's a whole bunch of different types of people you may want to onboard. So I've put together this presentation. So today we're going to be going over everything you need to use or how you need to use free tools to create an effective onboarding program. So we're quickly going to touch on the 5 C's of an effective onboarding program so that you know what it is you need to put into your onboarding program and how these different tools can help you achieve that. So we're going to look at free tools for designing an onboarding program, and then we're going to also look at some for executing an onboarding program. And then we're going to look a little bit deeper into how you can use your Google Workspace or Google nonprofit account to deliver some of these things that you may need for an onboarding program. If the slides can be available, I think I can share them through the event page. If I can't, then just feel free to contact me directly, and I can provide you the slides. It is all being recorded on the Facebook page. All right. So the 5 C's of an effective onboarding program, and some of you may already be aware of these. Sometimes you see only 4 C's where the check back isn't included. But these are essentially the components that will make an effective onboarding program for whatever group of people you're trying to onboard into your organization. So the first one is compliance. So every onboarding program is likely going to have something that people need to sign or review, or some sort of mandatory training program. So that all kind of falls under compliance. Another piece is the clarification piece, where the person being onboarded needs to understand what's expected of them within the organization. So in the example of a volunteer, it might be, number of hours per month that they're expected, maybe a code of conduct that they're supposed to follow, or other rules or regulations that might be pertinent to their role as a volunteer, what they're entitled to, not entitled to, for example. Culture is also a big one when you're bringing somebody new into your organization, especially when you're doing it virtually. It might be difficult, especially for organizations that operate mostly in person. It might be difficult to figure out how you're going to um, convey the culture of your organization through a virtual onboarding program, but it is possible, and I'll give you some tips as we go through. You also want to be able to share your missions and goals and your organizational values with those people that are being onboarded. And connection refers to more who do you need to be connected to, who's who in the organization, where do you find the information that you need to do things. That's kind of all related to the connection piece. And then the fifth one that isn't always included in when you kind of see the 5 C's, you also see the 4 C's sometimes. But this one is also really important, and it's being able to check back with that person who's being onboarded every so often. And the general rule of thumb is to check back with them in 30, 60, and 90 days. And, then eventually they become part of your organization, and there's likely some other sort of cadence that you follow for either performance or some other sort of annual review, or in the case of a board of directors, perhaps it's elections, right? But especially when somebody's just started out, it's important to be able to check back with them and make sure that they have everything that they need, that they've completed everything that they were supposed to, and make sure that they're integrated effectively into your organization. All right, so let's get to some of the fun stuff. So first, we're going to look at a few things a few tools that you can use to actually design and create your onboarding program. So when I'm talking about designing and creating, it's about figuring out, what needs to go into your onboarding program and what are the artifacts that you might need in order to deliver your onboarding program when somebody comes in. So obviously there's a whole bunch of tools you can pick, but these are 4 that I've picked that you can use for free that actually provide quite a bit of great value when designing and creating a onboarding program. So I'm going to go through each of them in a little bit more detail with some examples as to what you can use them for. So diagrams.net, if you've seen any of my previous presentations, probably I think I did one on Google Drive perhaps, or another one on free tools, probably it might have been last year. You might have heard me talk about diagrams.net. And diagrams.net is a great free tool that integrates really nicely with Google Workspace and Google Drive products, as well as many other platforms as well, including Microsoft. And you can create a lot of great charts. I tend to use it more for process flow diagrams, and I don't think I included an actual process flow diagram here, but it is a great way, and you can kind of see it in the logo, how you can actually create a flow chart with more step-by-step instructions. So you might want to use that for the actual onboarding process, or what needs to happen. This process map here that I put together is more of a graphical, pretty looking map, and you might want to use this to kind of outline a high level overview of when each step needs to happen or what needs to happen. Maybe this is something you would share with your board of directors to get approval for volunteer onboarding, for example, as opposed to the other workflow diagram that you can create that might be a little bit more operational because it's not as pretty. Another thing you can do if you are eventually going back to in-person, or if you are in person but you're onboarding virtually, another thing you can create using diagrams.net is an actual floor plan. So this is really handy to help onboard whoever you're bringing in to know where different things are within the office, or whatever space you're using. So it could also, if you're just onboarding a set of volunteers, perhaps for to help run a conference or a fundraising event, for example, and you need to direct volunteers to different areas within a venue, or even even if it's in a park outdoors, you can kind of use diagrams.net to create some sort of floor plan, and you can actually color code these. You can put text on top of each area. Maybe you have a section A, B, or C so that you can easily reference to the floor plan and provide that information to volunteers before they get to the event or office or wherever it is they're going to be executing their duties. Another great thing with diagrams.net is that you can actually create really nice org charts. And I know there's other tools you can use for this as well, but this one's free. And I know I've tried to create org charts in Google Slides and it just gets way too crowded. So diagrams.net already has these templates that you can kind of start from. So this wasn't something I created. These images that you're seeing here, they're examples that I just used their blank template to be able to give you an example of what's available there. And I think there were two different org charts that you could choose from as templates. But then again, you can also start from scratch with any of these and move things around. Org charts are really useful for onboarding people virtually so that they can get a sense of your organization and where they fit into the organization as well. Another suggestion for using diagrams.net is that you can actually use it as a Kanban board. Although it wouldn't be my first place or for my top suggestion for if you're going to use a Kanban board. But if you have a very small project or small team, or maybe just a few tasks that you need to manage to onboard somebody, it can be useful. I think if you have more than 15, 20 tasks, you probably want to look at another tool like Asana or Trello. But you can also use them here. And these are just a few of the examples of what you can create in diagrams.net. The rest of, there were a lot of other examples, but there are a lot more, there's a lot more technical ones, like you can do system maps, and there's a whole bunch of technology related ones, which are useful, but not really relevant to onboarding employees virtually. So I left those ones out for this session because I can only fit so much in. So those were some ideas as to how you can use diagrams.net. Canva. I love using Canva. If you want things to look pretty, you really need to look at Canva. And I'm not sure if everyone's aware of Canva, has used Canva before or not. But let me just check here. Okay. There is a lot that you can do in Canva. So Canva is basically a media creation tool is almost what I want to call it. You can create a whole bunch of different artifacts using Canva. So the first example I have here is an onboarding presentation. So you can obviously do this in Google Slides as well, or any slide deck kind of program. But what's great with Canva is that it actually comes with a whole bunch of these templates. So this is just one example of the many templates it has. And it already comes with all these slides kind of pre-populated to give you an idea of what it is you can include in an onboarding presentation for your staff. It gives you a slide for intro to the company, the organization's story, meet your teammates. So it's almost a no-brainer, kind of helps you get started if you don't have something in place already. This is just a quick example of how many different onboarding type of templates there are. There's more. This was just the first few. The first few that I selected there. Yeah, that's a good tip. So once you do create your presentation in Canva, you can save it as PowerPoint, and you can, yes, you can upload it to your Google Doc. You can also actually share the presentation via a link. So if you wanted to send it in an email, perhaps, you can either download it as a PDF or you can save it as a link, and they can view the live presentation as a link, which also means that if you change your onboarding template, you don't need to change the link. So you don't have to keep downloading and attaching it every time. You just share the view only link to it, and they can get that there as well. Another thing you can create in Canva is planning tools. So you can use a weekly planner template or a monthly planner template, for example, to plan out your onboarding. Uh, Maybe the first month or the first week. You can create these templates and then just change the person's name or change the dates around if needed. And it's a nice, pretty way of maybe something you want to send to your new uh, 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 I don't want to keep saying employee or staff because it could be, a volunteer or any other type of member that's coming into your organization. But you can send this to them ahead of time so that they have an idea of what their onboarding week might look like or their onboarding month. Um, and again, you can set it up as a link if it's something that's going to change regularly. Perhaps you have uh, a, a larger organization and you're planning, you have regularly scheduled volunteer, new volunteer meetings on the third Monday of every month, for example. If you already have that kind of monthly cadence of events, you can use these tools as well to communicate that to people. Another great thing with Canva, and this isn't a free thing, but it's free to make. So if you are thinking of maybe giving your newly onboarded people some sort of swag or other kind of organizational material, or even if you need business cards, you can actually send to print right from Canva. I can't speak if that's available across the globe, but I know it's available at least in North America. So it's a great way to kind of, maybe send them a mug or some other item that is printed to help them feel a little bit more a part of the organization. And the nice thing with Canva there for the print stuff is you can actually add their name to something as well, right? So you could design it so that you have your organization's logo on the mug and maybe the person's first name saying welcome, uh, you know, John or whatever name. All right, another great free tool is Loom. And for those of you who haven't used Loom before, it's a screen recording tool. It'll record your screen and or camera, depending on how you set it up. And this would be really great to be used as a virtual onboarding to actually bring a more personal element to it. So you can quickly set up a Loom video and have those key people in your organization do a custom welcome message to the new person. So, and maybe say a little bit about themselves. So you can, on the free plan, you can record for up to 5 minutes and you can save, I think it's 25 or 35 videos at a time. So you can also use, store them all in this team library here. So you can add, I want to say it's about 30 members maybe, or maybe it was 10. I don't recall, but you can add a small size team, but all of the videos that you have are actually shareable via a link. So if create all the videos or save them all, you can have your team library. You can save them all in your team library and share all those welcome messages with your newly onboarded person. It's a great way to add a little bit of a personal touch. The other good thing you can use Loom for is for any instructions that you may need to give. Maybe it's customized instructions specifically for that person where you need to kind of maybe show them how to log in or how to use some sort of software or any other, maybe you want to do an overview of your Google Drive and where you store information. That's something you could also use Loom for. Of course, there's other tools as well, but I like that it's free. All right, and now onto Asana. So Asana is a project management software, and I don't recall if I've done a session on Asana for TechSoup before. I think I have, but But anyhow, Asana is a great tool to use for all sorts of different types of projects. And you can use them for your regular operational projects as well. I don't know if I have a specific onboarding one available here. Let me see if the next one is. No. Okay, so Asana itself does come with an onboarding template, but it is a premium feature for that one. But there's no reason you couldn't set up your own. The three that I've included here are templates from Asana, and you can always modify them to meet your own onboarding process. So you might have a specific one for a direct manager or whoever is responsible for onboarding that person, and maybe they need to do some kind of IT setup or send information, but whatever tasks and checklists you might have can easily be set up in Asana ahead of time. You can also use Asana to actually create your onboarding program if you don't have one yet. So you could create yourself a project to say, to list out all the tasks, to gather all the policy documentation, to create the training materials, to, figure out the entire project plan. So you could use Asana for that as well. You can also use Asana to do facility requests. So if you are a larger organization and maybe they do have a physical space, or maybe they're going to be, you need to make sure certain things get delivered to them so that they can use when they're working on behalf of your organization in other places, perhaps. You can create requests and workflows and make sure that everything that they need is set up for when they're ready to start. Similar to work requests, really, you could have something as part of your organization where, this could be like a feedback form on your onboarding program that you're creating, perhaps, where, everyone can kind of collaborate and work on things. All right, so let's get into execution. So let's say I mean, there's obviously a lot of other tools you could use too to create your onboarding program. But once you've kind of designed your onboarding program, you have your artifacts perhaps created in Canva or wherever they are. Now you actually have to deliver your onboarding program when somebody starts. So these are a few of the tools that you could use. And I think everybody is probably familiar with Zoom by now. And obviously it's it's probably going to be the tool you use, if not, maybe Google Meet, or I know there's others out there, but whatever it is, you're going to need some sort of video conferencing tool in order to deliver a virtual onboarding program, because chances are you want to do something in person and have a one-on-one conversation with the person you're onboarding. And it's also useful for setting up maybe new team meetings so that people can connect with each other there. Or perhaps you're going to use it to deliver some sort of training. You'd also probably use it for your check-in meetings. And one of the great things about Zoom as well is that you can record your meetings just like we're doing today, or you can share it on your Facebook page if you wanted to do a, meet and greet, or here's our new star volunteer, and you can share it live there as well if you like. Zapier is another free tool. There is a paid option as well, but if you're doing simple automations, it's a great tool to automate your virtual onboarding program. So, once you've kind of decided your workflow, what might need to happen, you might want to use Zapier. Actually, I think I have some more slides here, so let's keep going. Oops. I have some slides and examples. Oh, all right. So we'll start with PandaDoc. So PandaDoc is an electronic signature software program, and it is a great way for getting electronic signatures. So it's something similar to DocuSign. And DocuSign, you do actually get a discount through TechSoup for DocuSign, so that could be something you want to consider as well. PandaDoc, though, does have a free version, which you can't save the templates on CanvaDoc, on PandaDoc's free version, so you would have to upload something every time. And these templates that you see here would be a paid. So sorry, I'm just checking the question here. With virtual onboarding, do these programs have HIPAA compliance, or is it more for general info? You'd have to check each app to check for HIPAA compliance. I know Google Workspace does have HIPAA compliance, but with any application, there tends to be somewhere where you sign, like I know with Google Workspace anyhow, I can't really speak to the rest, but you can you sign the BAA, I think it's called, which means that you agree and understand how to use Google Workspace to be HIPAA compliant. And by signing that within your Google Workspace account, it will lock certain things, I think. But ultimately, you need to be responsible for making sure that you use and set up your environment in such a way that you maintain HIPAA compliance. So for example, with Google Workspace, it is a Google compliant environment, but if you choose to share a Word document with personal information externally, that's not being HIPAA compliant. So it still comes down to the person. Anyhow, hopefully that helped. So to go back to PandaDocs, the electronic signatures, there are some paid things to make it really usable, to use these templates, but there is a great trick. So if you are creating your policies and documents or anything that needs to be signed in Canva, it's actually just 1 or 2 clicks to get it to PandaDocs and share it with somebody to sign. So I do this actually with my own contracts and agreements. So I have it set up in Canva, and I actually get to make it look a little bit prettier than just a plain Word document. And I leave the spots I need filled in for dates, for example. You can either fill them in Canva before you send it over to PandaDocs, or you can send it over to PandaDocs, and in a couple of clicks, it opens up in PandaDocs right away. And then all you have to do is click on, the signature, like add the signature box and the date box or whatever you need, and send it, add the email address and send. It's actually quite a nice, quick, streamlined process, because with the free version of PandaDoc, you can't actually save the template in there. So anyhow, I found this shortcut really easy to use. All right, so to get back to Zapier, Zapier makes you happier, which is why how I remember how to pronounce it. This is a great way to automate any of your workflows. These are just a few examples that maybe aren't the most relevant, but it connects with a whole bunch of different apps. So regardless of what you're using, you can automate something. So if you find you're doing something manually all the time, you may want to look into Zapier. It is free for, I believe you get up to 5 free one-step zaps, which means you can connect one app to another app to do one thing. So for example, if you have the person being onboarded fills out a Google form and you want to send them an email with additional details and maybe a link to your onboarding presentation, you can configure Zap to collect that information from the form and send the email. So that's an example of a one-step Zap. If you were to move up to the paid plan, you could do something a little bit more complex, and maybe a few more steps. Maybe get the form and send an email, plus schedule a calendar invitation, plus maybe I don't know, I've lost track of my thought, but you can do a whole bunch of different things with it. Maybe you want to add them to a spreadsheet, for example, or add the content to a spreadsheet so that you can track everybody who's been onboarded and received the email. So that's an example. All right. Now, I'm not sure if you guys can see the logo in the middle, but that's supposed to say Google for nonprofits. It doesn't seem to be showing up for me for some reason. But anyhow, so these are still some more tips on, how you might execute. But with Google Workspace, since it is free for Google for non-profits, I expect that a lot of you are probably using Google Workspace. If not, I mean, obviously Microsoft Word has similar apps and stuff, but I'm going to talk specifically a bit more about Google Workspace. It is one of the kind of applications that I do one-on-one training for as well. So I'm very familiar with it, and I think it's a great tool for being able to onboard. So the first one we're going to look at is Google Drive, and it's probably a little bit um, uh, self-explanatory, but obviously you can use your Google Drive to store all your files related to your onboarding program. One great thing you can do, so when you have your Google for nonprofits, when it's a workspace account, so not your free Google Drive account, you can actually create shared drives. So it keeps it separate from all of your other personal My Drive files and folders or anywhere else in the organization, which means you can limit the permissions of who has access to that folder. So if you're if you don't want to give access to all of your company documents until maybe they've finished their onboarding program, you can create a separate shared drive just for onboarded the onboarding period, for example. And you might, or maybe you have a separate onboarding drive for volunteers versus board of directors because they need different information. So you can create completely separate drives and add the individuals to the drives. Another great thing with Google Drive is that you can share links either directly to the folders that have a whole bunch of information or to the links of each individual document and share that wherever you're delivering your onboarding program. And the benefit with that is that if you change the content in the folder, you don't need to reshare it with anybody. It's always going to be active and live. So as time goes on, if somebody needs to reference back to whatever policy or procedure and it's been updated since then, even if they're looking at the original email they might have received with that information, when they click on it to link back, it'll bring them to the most relevant recent information. And similarly to creating the shared drives, you can also create groups. That's not really Google Drive specific, it's more of a Google Workspace thing. But you can actually just create a volunteer group, for example, and if you create something new in a folder or you maybe create a new presentation or there's some sort of an update or even for emailing, you just have to email volunteers@myorganization.ca without needing to worry about every individual person who's in that group because they already belong to that group. So you're allowed to share stuff with them, for example. Okay, another Google app that is probably a must-have for an onboarding program is Google Forms. And I believe I've done a session on Google Forms as well here. I don't recall. I do a few different webinars for a few different groups. All right, so Google Forms are great for onboarding forms. So perhaps you need to get information from them. Maybe you are giving out swag and you want to give out maybe t-shirts or something and you need their t-shirt size, or you need to know what their best dates are for availability for something. You can create Google Forms to collect that information. Perhaps at the end of the onboarding session, you want their feedback as to what they thought about the onboarding session, how you can improve it. That would be a handy way to use forms. You can use it for assessments and tests and quizzes. You can add videos to your questions or images to your questions. So if you're doing a health and safety quiz, for example, you can include stuff in there as well. You can also use it for simple um, yes or no questions to for them to acknowledge that they've completed certain assessments or other acknowledgements. For example, if you need to record it but maybe don't need an actual signature to go through the whole Panda Doc process, maybe. All right. And Google Docs. Great way to create a whole bunch of documentation. These are just a few of the examples that you might need to provide to somebody who's going through an onboarding process. Staff manual, or maybe there's some other sort of board of directors manual or processes that you want to share for how things get done. Obviously policies, any procedures you have, guidelines, code of ethics, job descriptions, any health and safety procedures as well. And obviously another good thing with Google Docs is that you can share and collaborate on them with other people within your organization as you're creating them. And similar to all of these, you can easily share them via a link, like I mentioned earlier. Google Sheets, obviously, a whole bunch of stuff you can do with that. You might even use it to create charts and diagrams that maybe you share elsewhere in your onboarding program. But it is a great way to, you could also use it for creating checklists to make sure that, the person being onboarded has completed everything that they've needed to complete. Um, Perhaps you are sharing some sort of budget information with them, or you're creating a list of events. And apparently contact information is really important because I've had to mention it twice. But that's another way you can share contact information with the people being onboarded. And like I mentioned with Zapier, you can use it. I find it really helpful between when you're collecting form data, it will end up in Google Sheets. But if you needed to maybe duplicate that information or send it to somebody else in a different format, you can actually use Zapier to kind of reroute only a portion of that information. So for example, if you're collecting maybe personal information through a Google form, but you only want somebody to receive a subset of that information because you don't want to include birth date and any other, maybe their address. You don't want to actually include that, but you want somebody else to get a list of the rest of the information that was submitted on the form. If you use Zapier, you can actually create a secondary form a secondary Google Sheet that has a subset of that information. So that's a useful way to kind of automate and share that information while keeping that private information private. Google Slides. So similar to the Canva presentations, right? You create all of your onboarding presentations on there. I've actually used Google Slides to create some decks about the organization, our nonprofit organization, that kind of includes also our mission and goals. And then I share that back with anybody being onboarded as well. You can use it to train, you can use it to provide information. You can also embed YouTube videos or other videos within the slides. So you can actually create a deck of maybe you're creating a deck of here's what our company is about, and you have some text, an overview page, and then maybe your president or executive director, or maybe the person's manager can say a little welcome video, and you can actually embed that right into the presentation. That's a handy way to be able to kind of make them feel included. Google Meet, which is obviously very similar to Zoom, but in my opinion, has a few less features, but it comes with your Google Workspace account. So it's a great way to connect with people virtually, in person. Well, not in person, but one-on-one online virtually. You can use it obviously for team meetings. Now I'm not 100% sure if you're allowed to record. I don't think you can record um, on the Google for Nonprofits workspace account. I think you have to have a paid Google Workspace account to record, but you can use it for live training sessions and any other meetings you want to have where you connect with people in person. Google Calendar is great when you're using Google for Nonprofits as an organization. Uh, it's even more powerful. You can set up like virtual meeting rooms in order to assign, like to use resources that you might have. Maybe you're using uh, like virtual Zoom accounts or Meet accounts. You can create, if you have it, obviously the resources part works a bit better if you have in-person um, facilities that you need to assign that can be bookable through a calendar. But for onboarding purposes, obviously you can use it to send meeting invitations. It's great to be able to schedule checkbacks. You can create Google Meet links right within the calendar invite. And the other thing I like about using Google Calendars is you can actually link right to your Drive documents so that you can include them right within the meeting invite. So everything is in one place. And the other thing you can do with Google Calendars, you can actually create bookable appointment slots. So it's similar to something like Calendly or Acuity. It's not as nice. It doesn't work as well. But you can send a link to have somebody book time with you. But you need to set those times in your calendar as available. Um, and happy to, if you need some more information about that, let me know. Uh, but it is useful for doing kind of specific appointment slots for the short period usually. But there is that feature available as well. You may also want to set recurring meetings so that you have maybe a weekly touch point or monthly touch point for a certain period of time with whoever it is you're onboarding. And that way you can kind of keep on top of things and make sure they have everything they need. All right, next up is Google Sites. Google Sites is actually a great way to kind of bring all of this onboarding program together. So you could have one website page, and depending on how your Google Workspace is set up, if you're also hosting it through there, you can probably use your own URL, or you can just use your Google URL. It's likely an internal site anyhow, so that's fine. And you can set it up and to make it look like a website, but you can actually embed and embed all of your Google related information right within the site. And it's a bit more of a obviously graphically appealing way to deliver all that information to your uh, person being onboarded. Um, and I think I didn't change some of my bullet points at the end of this. So those were from the previous slide. But Google, it's basically gives you a web page. So you just share one URL and you could put everything on that page. The other way to kind of deliver your onboarding program is using Google Classroom. So yes, Google Classroom is intended for the educational industry, but I don't see any reason why it can't be used for something like onboarding. So I quickly set this up as an example for how you could use it for a new volunteer onboarding. So with Google Classroom, you can create a class, and so I've called my class OPFA New Volunteer Onboarding. And under classwork, this is where you can create several different topics and then put assignments or materials or quizzes or other information underneath each topic. So, I've tried to kind of follow the 5 C's here, about our culture, and maybe I'll have a bunch of documents under here that they can review and complete regarding our culture and values. Under Meet the Team, there might be additional links to the website or other ways to share information about the team, or and a great one is for compliance. So you can list all of the uh, forms that you have for compliance under here, and uh, they'll go through each one and mark them as complete, and then you'll be able to kind of review that all on the back end as well as a teacher. um, and there's all sorts of information you can include in the Google Classroom. So this is just an example of what you can create. So the topic would be each of these major headings, but then within assignment and assignment and quiz, I'll show you briefly on the next page. But question would be like just a one question thing. So that's the example here for share a bit about yourself under Meet the Team. Um, it gives whoever's in the class the ability to write or share something about themselves, and everybody else in the class can see. So it might be something that's just open to everybody in the organization, and you can maybe all share about yourselves um, as people are onboarded. The material is really more just of an upload, so it's not something that they actually have to do or complete or mark as complete. So it's something you can uh, keep maybe in a resource section, or it's just like an upload of some sort. I also wanted to point out that you have your own Meet link for the classroom. So in the top right over here, I think you can see, you can actually create your own Google Meet link. So that classroom will always have the same link for people who want to get together and maybe discuss or do welcome meetings. You can have that single link all the time. And same with the class drive folder. So this class drive folder will store any of the documents that are uploaded within this classroom. And obviously the Google Calendar would be specific to this classroom. So when there's a class, this would be more helpful for larger organizations that maybe have a monthly onboarding. So maybe you bring everybody on at the beginning of the month, and a whole bunch of people are going through the process of onboarding that month. So you can use that calendar to create those monthly specific tasks or due dates that things may need to be done by. If you're adding people kind of ad hoc, or whenever they come on, the dates and due dates for the assignment don't really work well, because you'd have to set it for each individual person as they're onboarded. But for the most part, you can kind of keep track of that on the back end anyhow. So when you're adding an assignment, these are all the different kind of things you can add to the assignment. So when the user clicks in to see what that assignment is, they can see your title description. You can include a whole bunch of instructions. You can include um, a list of items here, obviously your basic formatting. You can include something from your Google Drive, so anything you've already created. You can upload something new. You can share a link to an external site. You can add a YouTube video, or you can create something new. from any of these items here. So you can see I've already got drawings highlighted because, perhaps I'm going to put in a workflow diagram, for example. But right from here, you can actually also include forms. So you might use that to do a quiz or an assessment quiz that's tied right into the classroom. And I think that brings me to the end of my tips with 6 minutes to spare. So before I wrap up, are there any questions? Okay, I'll wait to see if anybody adds any questions in. And while I'm here, I'm not sure why my things aren't, my icons aren't showing up, but I do offer one-on-one software training as well. If you need help. And what I would like to do for you guys, because I like to give back as well, is if you want to come on over and see me, I'm happy to give you guys 15 minutes of some one-on-one training. So just sign up on my site if you're interested in getting some extra help. Or if you have any questions about what I presented on, or need any help, or you want to connect, or you have ideas for future TechSoup events, please feel free to reach out to me, Sandra at allaboutsystems.ca. The website, for my, so if, here you go. I'll type it in the chat as well. And yeah, I'd love to chat with anyone who's interested, and you're welcome. And yes, my email, I'll put it in here as well. There you go. And no problem. Thank you guys. And I'll try to send out the slide deck through the TechSoup event email distribution list. But if it doesn't get to you for some reason, please let me know. And if you missed this event here, you can, or if you joined us late, you can also watch it afterwards on the event page where you signed up, or you should be able to find it on our Facebook live page as well. All right. I guess that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Sandra, I have a question for you.
Yes, Christos. Or
This,
Ivan.
Ivan.
Sorry.
No worry. We're all reduced to cubby holes in a computer screen anyway. Do you find in your professional practice, do you find that nonprofit staff, sorry, I'm trying to structure my question. I have worked in nonprofits for a long time. I'm a technology apt. I can speak technology, and sometimes, unfortunately, like we have found in many different practices, the issues are not technical, are human factors, change management, all of those things that are not really about how cool is Google or how simple is Canva to use. But my question goes to, in recent years, I have found that as I'm working with different nonprofits, we get people that are huge fans of DocuSign. And then these other small nonprofits, we all have gone through these perils and tribulation of moving to Panda documents, right? And then and then this clash happens, and we waste a lot of time going like, this is better. In a corporate world, my experience is that, it doesn't matter. Somebody gets it gets farmed out to somebody, and they go make it happen, like Gopher, right? Whereas in the nonprofits, because we don't have staff, this becomes a time waster. Do you have any I would say nuggets of wisdom? How do we help our clients or ourselves really, that ourselves to be more efficient, because again,
So
technology,
you're talking about getting people to agree on a tool to use?
or yeah, anything that you might have find to help us save us time.
Well, there's lots of ways to save time. But like, you're talking about trying to save time in making that decision,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so yeah, because you can talk about it and talk about the pros and cons of everything and just keep going in circles until somebody agrees, right? So I think it comes down to having the right kind of leadership with whoever, like somebody needs to be responsible and take ownership of, this is the tool that the organization is going to use, right? And it depends how large your organization is too. So I mean, some little tips, like I assume it's probably a smaller organization. Um, yeah, 5. So a couple things I can suggest: start with the pro and con list of each item, of each thing that you're looking at, right? Like, where are the pros, where are the cons, what are our pain points for this solution, and what are how can the other one maybe solve it? And if you're the one who's maybe trying to drive something, maybe it's the onus is on you to say, these are all the things you complain about this one, this is how this one can solve it. Or making them understand why it would be a better solution, maybe if we think we need to go this way versus that way. Looking at costs and trying to figure out what it is those people, like, what's holding them back. Is it just change? Is it because they're afraid to use it? So if they're afraid to use something, then maybe it's giving them the training ahead of time and saying, here, watch this 5-minute demo and see how easy this is. Or this is how you can still get something done, for example.
You see, so basically common sense and trying to bring them to their own terms. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I didn't want out of the call, but
No worries.
the other thing that I have found difficult, and maybe you in your practice you have found a better way, is this the challenge that we face with people when you finally leadership finally decides, okay, we're going to move to Google Workspace.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to move a whole bunch of people from Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, their personal accounts, move them into a so-called corporate account.
Right.
And I have found that extremely difficult. The only times I have found resolved support from executives is when somebody leaves the organization and poof, all the files.
Then you realize why.
Yeah. Have you found a simpler? Are there tools to facilitate or?
So like moving files from personal drives to Google Workspace, it's really, I mean, it's not complicated. So a couple things you can do. So if the problem is they don't want to find the time to do it, book time. It doesn't take long, right? Book a half hour, book an hour, and say, we're going to do this remotely, live, whatever. The simplest, depending on how many files there are, it might take a long time. But you can either go from the personal drive, download them to a computer, upload them to the workspace. Okay, the other option is they just share it. So if they share their drive or their folder with you via email, once it's shared with you, you can download it and upload it.
I see. And in this moving from personal desktop backup to a corporate, the link. The link's still good.
Not the original link.
Oh,
like, so once you get it on your and you don't want it to be, you want the source of truth to be on your domain, right? Because if the source of truth is still on their personal, then they still own it.
You're right. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your help.
No problem.
Best of luck.
Excellent. Thank you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.